My 18th year as a Christian, though, I really wasn't enjoying being a Christian very much. When I first came to know Jesus, and I experienced forgiveness of sins and the infilling of the Holy Spirit, there was unbelievable joy, unbelievable sense of His love. And this was the spring of 7th grade. And by the end of 8th grade, everybody signed my yearbook to mark the Jesus freak. And the reason is because I couldn't help but wanting everybody to know Jesus. And as the years have gone by, I realized that so much of our gospel presentations are a destination message. Avoid this destination and go to this one. But when I came to know Jesus, it was a relationship message where I encountered God in such a way that it was so profound and so powerful. I was like the woman at the well. Come meet the guy, come meet the guy, But 18 years later, after Wheaton College, after Gordon Conwell Seminary, after oodles of Bible studies and whatever else, somehow by 31 years old, I didn't enjoy being a Christian very much anymore. It's like, God, where'd the joy go? Why do I not experience that very often? And you said it was supposed to be easy, light, and rest for our souls, but it feels a lot of times heavy, hard, and stressful. What's happened? Well, it was in that desperation that I went to read 1 John 4:19, especially because I also realized that I wasn't very loving. And that's the primary thing we're supposed to be known for, right? How are people supposed to recognize those who follow Jesus? It's supposed to be by this extraordinary love we have for one another and for them. And I was so very, very aware that I wasn't very loving. And it was in that desperation, by the end of my first year as a lead pastor, I said, Lord, if you don't change my heart and help me love better, then I'm out. I'd been a carpenter from high school all the way through seminary and to the end, 3 years after seminary. So I said, I'll just go back and keep building because I'm good at that and I like it. What business do I have being a lead pastor if I'm not a very good example or model of the thing that matters most? And it was in that moment that I went to 1 John 4 because I knew it was about love, and I started reading. Dear children, let us love one another because love comes from God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, but whoever loves knows God because God is love. I keep on reading, and I got to 4:19, and then these words that changed my life. We love because He first loved us. It is a fact, but in that moment, that day, as my brother-in-law just said recently, and I went, ooh, that was really good. In that incredibly audible, non-audible way that you just know that you know, God has talked to you. Through that passage, He spoke it to my heart and said, Mark, you got it all wrong, son. It's not me coming and zapping your heart somehow and suddenly you're going to be this, woohoo, I'm an amazing lover of God and others. No, He said, you got it all wrong. You love because I first love you, which means you got to come to me who is love and let me love you first. And then you'll love because. In a moment, I'm going to share with you the second passage that together, everything changed at that point. There's 19 times in the Old Testament where just this pure statement, the Lord is good, is written. That's fact. That's truth. But David changes it by saying, no, goodness isn't just to be understood. Goodness is to be experienced. Right? You can say pizza is good. That's an opinion. But if somebody goes, pizza, whoo, baby, so good. That's somebody who's actually tasted it. Right? What we long for, what David's saying is that I want everybody who actually is in relationship with God, that they wouldn't just say, oh, the Lord's good. He would go, oh, baby, the Lord is just so good. The sound of somebody who's experienced that goodness. If you asked a friend to come to a Sunday morning church service like this, do you think this is what they would think? If they were coming to church on a Sunday morning, sitting in this service, is this what your outside friends would think? Somebody says yes. Or would they think this? The preacher standing there with the big pulpit Bible and I mean, I know you're laughing, but do you realize that inside and the outside of the church, this is often people's perception of Christianity? It's about commands. It's about rules. It's about you need to do right and not wrong. Be good and not bad, right? So again, just want you to see this picture again. Would they actually think, ooh, I want to go and sit in this room here because this is what we'll experience? Or, again, is it that they would think, I ain't going there. I don't need somebody pointing me and telling me how bad I am and what I need to do to change my behavior or whatever. Now, why? Why would people think that image, even inside and outside the church? Well, most of you have probably heard the phrase Great Commission, right? Great Commission, Great Command. Actually, the words Great Commission are not even in the text. The word great and the word commission doesn't even exist in the passage. That's something we put with it. But I point it out because it's probably something you've heard oodles of times. Right? Make disciples, baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then comes this line, and teaching them to obey all that I've commanded you. It would be easy to get the impression, right, that it's all about commands, about obedience. Well, according to the rabbis, there is 613 Old Testament commands. That could kind of give you an idea why they think it's all about commands. There's quite a few of them. And then you have there the Gospels. For my dissertation, I had to go through read the Gospels, because one day I actually took my phone out and said, hey, Siri, how many commands of Jesus are there? Anybody know? Well, I already clicked the slide. The thing is, when I said, hey, Siri, how many commands of Jesus are there? The lowest one, somebody had 39. The highest one, somebody had 120. And I went, oh, shoot, I'm going to have to do this myself. So I slowly reread through the Gospels, and I put 73-ish, because some of them are a little tough to tell whether, as I was looking what the others had, well, I wouldn't have called that really a command of Jesus, or maybe this or that, but I essentially came up with 73. But then you got the New Testament letters. How many of the authors say, do this and don't do that? I don't know what the total amount is, but it's easy to see how inside and outside the church, people think that the primary thing about our faith is about obedience to commands. Remember this passage at the bottom of the screen there, right? When Jesus said, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. You understand that that has nothing to do with you being physically tired. Weary and burdened had everything to do with being overwhelmed with all those commands, and particularly the applications and interpretations of the Pharisees. So they felt like they could barely move without fear that they were going to mess up. And if they messed up, there would be negative consequences. So you try hard to be good so there would be positive blessings in their lives, right? Well, the question is, though, is that Jesus said, take my yoke and learn from me. And if you do so, you'll find rest for your souls because it's easy and light. And here in my 18th year of being a Christian, when I was 31 years old, right, I'm going, Jesus, what did I miss? Because after 18 years, I have read through the Old Testament, we've taught it, we've studied it, all the letters, all the Gospels, and I'm feeling the weight of all that, and it doesn't feel easy, light, and rest. In fact, most of the time, it's feeling heavy, hard, and stressful. That's what I'm saying. I wasn't liking being a Christian very much anymore. And it was really tough to invite somebody into it. I mean, it really affects evangelism. That's why I think overall we resort to a destination message. Don't go here, but go to here. If it's a relationship message, how is our relationship with God? Is it full of joy and peace, and it's really easy and light and whatever? So, okay, Jesus, what is it? What did I miss? Well, one of the things, of course, we're all familiar with this, right? One day somebody says, of the 613, which one is the greatest? To which Jesus gives two and says they're both equal. Both equal. They're not like this. They are like this. Love God and love your neighbor. Basically, two parts of the one greatest command. But then in Matthew's version, he actually says, for all of the commands hang on these two commands. So here he just shrunk down from 613, he took 2. And then he says, but all the rest of them hang on those commands. Well, what does that mean? What that means is that all the rest of the commands are not rules to try to be kept, but they're everything about relationship with God and with each other. Every single command is what does or does not love God and what does or does not love your neighbor. This is one of the most horrible things about commands, and I got to say this as carefully as I can. You know the word sin. Okay, the sin nature, right? At the heart of the sin nature is selfishness, regardless of any impact on anybody else. It's me, whatever I want, whatever I do, and I don't care how it affects you. But how it manifests itself is in wrong and harm to God and to our neighbor. It's not failure to keep a rule. When we think of sin as keeping rules, then we think, well, everybody breaks rules from time to time. It's no big deal. But if you ask somebody who got murdered, I think they would feel like that was pretty wrong and harming. Okay, it didn't come off very funny, but you know what I mean. You know, it's not like the person goes around, well, shoot, Lord, I murdered today. Darn it. But everybody kind of breaks rules from time to time. You follow what I'm saying? Sin is about relationship. It's about wrong and harm. And all of the other 611 commands are simply, even Jesus' commands. I did that and I put them in columns. And every single thing that Jesus taught was one way or another that loves or does not love God or loves or does not love their neighbor. Right? In other words, if you go out and you're thinking about loving your neighbor, and that's the only thing that's on your mind, right? And loving your neighbor as yourself, you come across somebody, and what's your name? Kelly. And I see Kelly, and I'm going, Lord, what does loving her look like? And it might be compassion, and then it might be kindness, and then it might be forgiveness, and then it might be helping, and then it might be this, and this. And over time, over days, over months, you fulfill all the rest. Because you can't go out every day going, 73, can I do all 73? It's like it's silly, right? If our kids were little and they went out and played and they come in, you're tucking them in bed and say, so what'd you do today? Oh, Dad, I rode my bike. Yeah, but did you play game boards? And did you play tag? Did you play hide and seek? Did you do this? Did you do that? I mean, you never do that to a child. Because play is full of options and freedom. Well, so is the love of God. And it's going to manifest based on the person's need and behavior in front of you. But you only have to think about the one. Love God and love your neighbor, right? Well, then, Paul actually went so far as to moving it from 2 to 1, right? Paul says, for the entire law is summed up in the one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. Boy, that's easy, light, and rest. And all I have to do is get up each day and go out the door and just think about how to love it. But then here's the craziest thing, and this is the other passage, 1 John 4:19. But then one day when he finally helped me see this command and understand it, he gave on the last night, the last words of Jesus at the Passover, remember? He gave this new command. Love one another as I, Jesus, have loved you. A couple chapters later, he actually makes it his own personal command. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Well, the question is new. Why call it new? If the old one worked, the original one worked, right? Love your neighbor as yourself, fulfilled the law, it was all working. Why did he feel compelled to have to give a new one? In my dissertation, right, you wouldn't think you'd have to look up the word new in the Greek. You know, like probably Bill's done it sometimes when it says all. I looked up all and it means all in Greek, you know. The same thing with new, you know, just kind of like new. I guess it's brand new or something. I don't know. But I look up the word new, and there's what the 3 words were in the Greek dictionary: unknown, strange, and remarkable. Wow. So then you had to ask, so what's so unknown, strange, and remarkable about this command? Well, you might think it's got a different ending, right? The original love command, love your neighbor as yourself. But the new command has this new clause. As I, Jesus, have loved you. That's what's really new. So then you have to ask yourself again, what makes as I have loved you unknown, strange, and remarkable? And I don't have to ask for 2 volunteers because we already asked. Would you please love Morgan as I, Mark Fee, have loved you?
Sure.
Okay, don't miss that face, okay? Dude, can I give you a hug?
Sure.
I love you, dude. So glad you're here. So let's try again. Jim, would you please love Morgan as I, Mark Fee, have loved you? Thanks, guys. But please do not miss the utter profoundness. What made that new and unstrange and remarkable is because the first time when I asked him to love as I had loved him, I was deliberate to make sure Jim and I had never had an interaction before. And you saw he gets kind of flustered and laughing and smiling and nervous energy, even puts his hands up like this for a minute. But then after I gave him just a little experience of love, and then say, would you please love Morgan as I have loved you, what did he do? Not a moment's hesitation. You see, what makes the command unknown, strange, and remarkable, that unlike as yourself, which is empathy-based, Jesus defined it in Matthew 7:12, do to others what you'd have them do to you. In this command, the only way you can obey it is you actually have to be loved by Jesus first. Right? Jim was frozen. But then when he was loved by me, he could love as I had loved him. And the difficulty is that all these years, nobody's ever paused to think the disciples were loved by Jesus, right? For 3 years. If it was 3 years, 365 days, let's say 10 hours a day, that would be 11,000 hours. They were loved by Jesus. They observed his love and they participated with him in loving. But maybe at this moment you're thinking the question, but what about us? How do we get loved by Jesus with words and actions in an embodied way today so that we can turn around and love as? The activities that we do are actually a way by the Spirit that you can be loved with words and actions in an embodied way by Jesus, that you can turn around and give away what you've experienced. See, come taste and see. Come learn how to taste and see of the goodness of God. It'll change your life. That I can guarantee because God shows up and loves you. And it's pretty amazing.